three things that most people don't know. Every billionaire, 17 different industries, 17 different countries, aged 29 to 81, they all got up before 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. They all meditated. They all read for an hour a day, and they all exercised. So billionaires have more energy than most people. Why? Because they're fit. They meditate, so they're getting downloads. Most people don't know this, but Chicken Soup for the Soul, the title came to me because I didn't have a title. We had all these wonderful stories. So I said, we're going to ask God for a title. And we're going to sit for an hour in meditation and see what we get. First day, nothing. Second day, nothing. Third day, I'm sitting there, and I see this green chalkboard appear in front of me, and this hand comes out, which I assumed was the hand of God. And it wrote Chicken Soup on it. And I said to the hand, I said, what the heck does Chicken Soup have to do with this book? And the voice said, when you were sick as a kid, your grandmother would give you chicken soup. And I said, but this is not a book about sick people. And the voice said, people's spirits are sick. They're living in resignation, hopelessness, and fear. So I'm sitting there going, chicken soup for the spirit, chicken soup for the soul. And I got goosebumps, which I like to call God bumps. And so I called up Mark, he got goosebumps. I told my wife, she got goosebumps. I told my agent, he got goosebumps. We went to New York, met with 21 publishers. Nobody got goosebumps. So we got rejected by 21 publishers. It took us 144 rejections by publishers before we got a yes. And I want to say this to people, really impress upon you. I don't want to impress you about me. I want to impress upon you that when you persevere, you're going to be successful. You know, you had John Gordon talking about grit and about perseverance and the willingness to not give up. I loved what he said about the double triathlete, who said, I stopped listening to my inner voice and I started speaking to it. You got to change your inner critic to an inner coach. So what if I'd given up after 100 rejections? There'd be no Chicken Soup for the Soul. Now, it took us 14 months before we found a publisher. And what I often tell to authors, because I know a lot of people watching are people who write books and want to write books, is when you get a rejection letter, you don't want to say, this means my book is no good. You want to interpret it as, the editor who will love my book does not live at this address. Because somewhere there is someone who's going to love your book. I read about Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks. Howard Schultz was turned down by 217 investors and banks before someone said, yes, we will fund you. And what if he'd given up after 100 or 200? There'd be no Starbucks. But the point being, you have to be willing to persevere. So what is this system I teach? There are 17 principles that allows you to move from where you are to where you want to be. John Caleb, who's in the Philippines, I was over there, gave him a copy of my book at a book signing because he was a reporter that was homeless. You're living on beds of your friends and couches? He said, yeah. He had a restaurant, he went bankrupt, and he was interviewing me. I said, John, that's the best interview ever. How long have you been doing this? He said, you're my first interview. I said, well, you're a natural. Let me give you my book. And I asked him how much money he had. He said, $4. That was his net worth, was $4. So I gave him $20 to buy dinner. I had to buy my book from the bookstore to give to him because I didn't have a lot of books in the Philippines with me. And I said, come to my workshop the next day. I come back 2.5 years later to the Philippines, and in walks this guy who I recognize with the blue blazer, with the gold medallion, 12 other people behind him like an entourage with polo shirts, the same medallion on it. And I said, you look familiar. Who are you? He said, I'm John Caleb. I'm the guy who interviewed you when you were here last time. I said, oh, that's right. He said, now I'm one of the richest people in the Philippines. I'm worth about $3 million. I've got 2 exotic cars. He was wearing a Rolex on each wrist, which I thought was a little blingy. He was the #1 motivational speaker in the Philippines. He was getting 600 to 1,000 people at all of his talks. I said, John, what changed? He said, I read your book and I did everything in it. I said, John, no one's done everything in my book. There are 64 principles. He said, no, Jack, I did everything you said in that book for 1 year. I said, here's the deal. My life sucks. This guy's life is perfect. I'm going to do what he says. And if it doesn't work, I've wasted a year. And if it does work, I could have a life like him. It works, but most people don't do that. Most people take the book, they read it, they go, wow, that's really cool stuff. And then they put it on the shelf. They end up with what I call shelf-esteem instead of self-esteem because they don't really do the work. The first principle is take 100% responsibility. No blaming, no complaining. The idea being that you want to take 100% responsibility. I teach a formula called E plus R equals O. There's an event plus your response equals an outcome. Everything you're currently experiencing is an outcome of an earlier response to an earlier event. Someone gave you a cake, you ate it, you got fat. Someone gives you $2,000 and you blow it, you go out and have a big party. A year later, your net worth doesn't go up. Someone else takes that same event called a $2,000 bonus, invests it, and a year later, their net worth is 20% more. So it's the same event, different response, different outcome. The coronavirus pandemic, everyone being locked down, shut in, that's an event. Some people are getting wealthier. I know people whose income's up 30, 40% during this period of time, as opposed to people who aren't. But someone said, when you run out of resources, you never run out of resourcefulness. You always have the resourcefulness. Who can I ask? What can I do? And there's always an answer. So it's not the event, it's your response. Now there's only 3 responses you can have to anything. Your thoughts, the images you have in your head, and your behavior, what you say and do. Most of us are thinking negative thoughts, which are creating things like fear. Fear is the result of thinking a negative thought about the future. You can easily replace that negative thought with a positive thought. And you can go into the future with that. One of the things that's really critical that I would ask everyone to do right now is to create what we call a breakthrough goal. What would be that goal that if you could achieve it in the next 12 months, that would literally quantum leap your life? Not just like a 20% increase, but like doubling your income, or having your own podcast, or having your own radio show, or completing your book, or completing your online course, or getting Uber or Microsoft as a client, or selling your business to Google, whatever it might be. And don't worry about the how. Everyone right now says, well, I don't see how I can do it. I didn't see how I could make my first $100,000. I didn't see how I could make my first $1 million. But once I committed to the what and started affirming it and visualizing it, I started having creative ideas. See, what happens is when you do visualization and affirmations for 30 days in a row, there's something in the back of your brain called the reticular activating system. And what it does, it filters out your perception. It's like right now, everyone watching this is not aware of what's going on in their left foot. But as soon as I say left foot, can you feel it? Yeah. And so basically your brain was filtering that out. As soon as you have a goal and you start visualizing and affirming it, after about 30 days, your brain will start letting in ideas from your subconscious and things around you that you never saw before. You ever buy a new car and then the next few days you see that car everywhere? It's like, why? Because you'd have a new filter because you just spent a lot of money, which was an emotionally charged experience to buy this expensive car. And so our filter opens up. Well, I want to open up your filter to let in that which will help you be successful as opposed to that which won't, which is mostly advertising, trying to sell you stuff you don't need to impress people you don't care about. So the point is you basically want to use these tools that advertisers use against you. You want to use them for you. You always want to study with the master to go faster. You make money by investing money, investing in your own personal development, investing in courses, investing in people. People often say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. You've probably heard that. But you can master something faster if you're working with a master. And every master was once a disaster, including me. I was not all that good at this until I worked with W. Clement Stone, who was a master, who was worth $600 million. So surround yourself with positive people. But you can't become extraordinary by hanging out with ordinary people. Jim Rohn said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There are TED Talks, TEDx Talks, there are books, there are courses that you can read, etc. I just want to encourage people that you could literally come out the other side like coming out of a car wash. You would be a totally different person. You'd have more success, you'd be achieving more, you'd be happier, you'd probably lose some weight, or if you need to gain weight, whatever. You could have better relationship because you can apply these principles to all 7 areas of your life. They all work in every one of those areas. Andres Pira, 19 years old, living on a beach in Thailand, totally homeless, gets a copy of The Secret with someone. He asked some friends, give me $100. He said, no, but I'll give you a book. He gave him The Secret. He said, I don't want no freaking book. What's this going to do for me? And he reads about visualization. He says, this is BS. And he's got nothing better to do because he's sleeping under a palm tree on the beach. So one day he said, I'm just going to close my eyes and meditate and pretend I have a cup of coffee in my hand. So he closed his eyes because he couldn't afford coffee. He was spending $25 a day for noodles, 25 cents a day rather. He's sitting there, imagining holding the coffee. What would it taste like? How would it feel? What would it feel like it's going down? The adrenaline rush would go out through his body, the caffeine rush. And he does that for about 10 minutes. The next morning, he's sleeping on the beach, and the guy comes over and shakes him and says, hi, I noticed you've been sleeping on the beach. I brought you a cup of coffee. He says, what? Then now he's like blown away with this. He said, well, what if I could manifest a meal? So he spent about 20 minutes manifesting a meal in his mind. What would it be like to actually eat? He was still eating steak back then, to have a juicy steak, baked potato, vegetables, a dessert, and all that. And 2 days later, he's walking down the beach, and some guy goes, are you Andres Pira? Are you from Sweden? I was at the same high school you were. Here, let me buy you lunch. So now he's really enrolled in this, and he starts visualizing having a job. Within a week, he's got a job leading people into a condo sale type thing. You've been there when they're trying to sell you condo shares. And pretty soon, he visualizes he wants to be a salesperson. Well, that opportunity happened. Then he said he wanted to visualize being a sales manager. That happened. Then he visualized, he said, sales manager's not making all the money. The real estate guys are making the money. So he became a real estate agent. Then he said the real guys making the money are the guys who are building condos. He started becoming a contractor. Now he builds resorts for Hyatt and Renaissance Corporation. It's worth $3 million. He's 35 years old because he applied these same principles that are in this book. So anyway, I'll shut up because I could go on for 6 hours.